Hi, this is Joe Rebelo, and I'm here today to talk about a friend of mine. And that friend of mine is Leo Lacerte. So let's start at the very beginning. I first met Leo Lacerte via a classified ad in the Standard Times, which is a New Bedford-based newspaper. He was looking for a select group of individuals who were interested in studying the Chinese martial arts. I replied to that ad, and it was located in this house on Hicks Street. And if you know Hicks Street, it's not the best neighborhood in the world. It was a pretty rough neighborhood. Matter of fact, it was right down the street from the Sidewinders Motorcycle Club headquarters. Great neighborhood. It was kind of a rundown building, and I went in there, and on the first floor, Leo lived with his mom and his dad at that time, Rita and Joe. Rita? No, Rita's his wife. Wow, you can tell I'm tired. But his mom and his dad lived there. Rita ended up being his significant other. But his mom and his dad were, a lovely little couple. And Leo taught out of the basement of this place, 16 Hicks Street. And he was working with another gentleman by the name of Chris Vieira. And they literally were teaching this hybrid kind of Kung Fu system. And again, I wasn't that familiar with Kung Fu. I was just starting up in Kung Fu with this other instructor with the Wu-Tang group. But I wanted to learn Kung Fu. I wanted to learn Kung Fu since the time I was 12 years old. So it was an ideal opportunity for me. So we would do these classes where since the time of 7, I had been involved in martial arts. And I really started to research martial arts around the time I was 12. And at this point, I was a young man in my later teen years, if I'm not mistaken. And I would go to these classes, and they would say, well, we're going over this form, Nihonchi. Nihonchi wasn't a Kung Fu form, it was an Okinawan form. But they also incorporated some Southern-style Kung Fu, and Leo had learned from this gentleman, Chris Vieira. He also learned from another guy by the name of Steve Monty. And he had stated the names of these two systems that I had never heard of before in all my research at that time. But I was interested in learning Kung Fu. And Leo was one of my instructors, and I got several things from Leo initially. I got an instructor that was, like myself, very involved in reading martial arts magazines, watching martial arts films, really wanted to educate himself regarding various martial arts. He had studied martial arts since he was a young man, learning Japanese and Okinawan martial arts systems. He was a Vietnam veteran who had learned Taekwondo and other martial arts while being in Vietnam. And he had made this acquaintance with Chris Vieira, and they were teaching. And it went on for a while, studying there. I was studying with other martial artists, but I really got to know Leo. And we would compare notes on the new martial arts magazines that came out or the new books that came out. And, I found a kindred spirit in regards to that. Unfortunately, the training with Chris Vieira and the other gentleman did not last, I'm sad to say. I never got my black sash in those particular systems. But I got to know Leo. And so after he and Chris, and actually another interesting thing was that I actually got to work with Leo. Leo and I worked together originally for J&J Security, and then later on for Cliff Deck Security, which actually was run by a mutual friend by the name of Bill Arruda. So Leo, Chris, and myself all got to work together under one roof through the Cliff Deck Corporation. So we got to know each other on a more personal level. And that was really interesting. And like I said, with Leo, I found the kindred spirit. I found not only an instructor, but a friend. I then reestablished my ties with my original Kenpo instructor from the 1970s at United Studios of Self-Defense, a gentleman by the name of Jim Gagnon, who was the assistant instructor there, and started training with him. And I'd gotten all the way up to blue belt initially in Kenpo, in that system of Kenpo, and then started training with Jim to eventually get my black belt. Well, I told Leo about this gentleman, and Leo didn't really have a very high opinion of Kenpo at that time. But I brought Jim over to meet him, and they got along famously. They were both veterans. They were both interested and fascinated with martial arts, so they immediately connected. And Leo decided to start learning that particular system of Kenpo. And then eventually, Leo, myself, and another gentleman, Ron Valliere, all tested for our black belt in January of 1983 in that particular system of Kenpo. And after Leo got his black belt, he really became interested in the different systems of Kenpo, and especially Ed Parker's system of Kenpo. We wanted to establish contact with Ed Parker. Again, at the time, we thought we were doing his system. We didn't know any better. So I'll never forget, I was training with Leo in his basement on Hicks Street, and his lovely mother opened up the door up on the first floor apartment and said, "Leo, Ed Parker's on the phone for you." And I'll never forget, it was like that she had told us that Jesus Christ was on the phone. We both rushed up the stairs, leaving small smoke trails like some of our old Warner Brothers cartoon, to hear Ed Parker on the phone. Again, that really started Leo's ties with Mr. Parker. He was one of the first people in New England at that time to connect with Mr. Parker. At the time, Mr. Parker was making a new move back into Kenpo in New England through Tony and Doreen Cogliandro and Professor Nick and Nancy Serio and Don and Christine Rodriguez at that time. I don't even know, I don't believe that Christine was even married to Don yet at that time. But those were the main people. There were a couple other people, Steve Jellin out of Beverly. There was another gentleman, Tony Pelletier, I believe, out of Salem. Again, Rocky DeRico. Those were the main people who were getting involved at that time. Kalai Griffin from Springfield. Those are the main people getting involved with Mr. Parker's system, again, at that time. And Leo took to it like a duck to water. You know, and I think Leo and myself were very fortunate in the fact that we both had Kung Fu training. And really, when you look at Mr. Parker's system, it really is a Chinese influence system. So because Leo and I had studied Chinese martial arts before, I feel we were at a distinct advantage learning it. And Leo was passing the knowledge along to me, and we were going through the cumulative journal and going through the material together. It was not just the experience of he was the instructor and I was the student. It was also of two black belts sharing that material, and then watching the other people in New England strive through that and try to learn that material. And another important feature that as I was going through the studio and whatnot, Leo had a particular crest, and if you can see, the Ed Parker crest here. You see this wonderful shield here. It was this shield shape. Leo had taken it from a Kung Fu patch that had a shield and cross swords and a yin-yang, and then the diamond-shaped patch was a eagle claw hand, which actually was originally from Mr. Parker's book, Secrets of Chinese Karate, which he in turn had gotten from a photograph from a Kung Fu book. Anyway, Leo had utilized that, and he used to have a place called the Wu Chun Institute. Wu meaning martial, Chun meaning penetration. When you penetrate through an opponent's guard, striking them. That was Wu Chun. And the Wu Chun Institute originally had Kung Fu at the bottom, and later switched, when Leo switched over to Kenpo, to Chuan Fa, the Chinese pronunciation of Kenpo. And then Leo had done some variations on this as well. Somewhere I've got a t-shirt with the transitional Kenpo Karate logo with that on the bottom. But I was so impressed with the way Leo had done this, and I wanted to honor him because he, again, was the person who started me involved in the Chinese martial arts and involved in Mr. Parker's system of Kenpo. So the patch we wear is a variation on the patch that Leo created. Leo will always be remembered and will always be honored by the person who originally designed this particular format of logo. As I said, we were talking about Leo and getting involved in the IKK and Mr. Parker's system. He took seminars with Mr. Parker, was making an active effort to learn the system in any way, shape, or form. And there was a little bit of Kent politics that was going on around that time with the system and whatnot, different things happening. And at the time I got involved with some backers and opening up my own school. And I contacted Leo. Leo had run a previous location over on Durfee Street with a gentleman, Charlie Baruti, and it didn't work out that well, and he was kind of disillusioned at the time. And I told him about this new endeavor I had and wanted to bring him over, and he didn't want to go. I literally just about had to grab him physically and drag him kicking and screaming to this location. But once he saw that it was an actual physical location, it was actually going to go on, it was actually going to be a reality, he was all for it. And unfortunately, it didn't work out that well, but we still had that experience together, and that enabled Leo on many occasions to meet with Mr. Parker and work with him, and he was really the person, like I said, who got me involved in American Kenpo. Leo, after that point, continued on through Kenpo and became fascinated with Mr. Parker's system, and had a voracious appetite for learning as much as he could about the system. And sadly, Mr. Parker died in 1990, And at least we got in the last few years of Mr. Parker's life to meet with him, to work with him, to train with him, to study with him, and any capability and any possibility that we could. This really inspired Leo to go on and achieve new levels of understanding. So he really contacted various first-generation black belts, whether it be Lee Wedley, Huck Planis, and whenever possible, try to work out with them. Again, try to pick up whatever manuals and material they had, and he would constantly cross-reference the material. And it got to the point where he really decided to start formulating his own manuals and text regarding it based on all the various information. Again, one of the later greatest influences to him was Skip Hancock from Kenpo 2000. He brought Skip down, he had him do seminars, he really took his stuff to heart, and it really helped enhance his understanding of the Kenpo system. He was also, when Mr. Parker was alive, one of the main sponsors for one of the international karate championships. And his name was proudly listed on banners around the Long Beach arena. And I remember a wonderful picture of him that he had taken when he was competing at the event and to earn the flame patch. There's kind of a mirror image with this going on as I'm looking at you guys. And was listed as one of the sponsors. And it meant the world to him to be involved in that capacity. Later on, he would get involved with the various Kenpo organizations that came into fruition after Mr. Parker's untimely death in 1990. Working with individuals such as Jeff Speakman, Brian Hawkins, Larry Tatum at one point. Again, he really wanted to learn and absorb as much as he could possibly can regarding Kenpo. It became his voracious appetite, his lifeblood. That became his mission in life, to learn as much as he could about American Kenpo and to understand the theories and concepts and principles and pass that knowledge along to others. And after the commercial studio that we had together for a short time, he then got involved with teaching privately again and focusing on educating individuals to American Kenpo and also writing books. Originally, he wrote a series of manuals based on all the different influences of Mr. Parker's system and putting them together in a comprehensive fashion. Later on, he would get involved in creating his own series of books on the basics and on the techniques and sets and forms of American Kenpo in his own fashion, meaning that instead of getting this guy's book and that guy's text and this guy's manual, he tried to conglomerate everything together and including specialized, personalized notes that he had from seminars with Mr. Parker and various first-generation black belts. Really, Leo Lacerte was the Kenpo pioneer. There are other individuals who, and I'm named by, the Steve Arsenals and Lance Swords who own commercial studios. They were white belts when Leo was a black belt. They were his instructor. And I clearly state that Leo was my instructor, Leo was my fellow student, meaning that we were two students working together for a common goal, but he also instructed me in Kenpo as well. Again, that's the key. I was a student. He was student. He was teacher to me, both. And he is the pioneer. If you want to give credit, who was the person who brought Kenpo to Southeastern Massachusetts? Leo Lacerte. Nobody else. He's the man, and he needs to get that rightful recognition that he so rightfully deserves. Leo helped me on so many levels. Leo was a person who, when I was doing Kung Fu, would buy these different Kung Fu films and would sit in his basement at Hick Street and watch these different films from like Leo Fong, from Kinoi Enterprises, and we would watch different Kung Fu movies, silent films in 8mm, long before the advent of VHS. We would exchange tapes, we would exchange magazines and books, and we would talk about different individuals. And we would brainstorm. Did you get this from this guy? Yeah, I got this from this guy. Want to trade off? And we were in a constant search for that knowledge. And that's just the nature of the way Leo was. And he would teach his classes on Saturday and finish up and go upstairs. And Leo loved his beers, and he would sit upstairs and he'd watch videotapes and have a couple of brews, and wasn't bothering anybody or harming anyone. Just wanted to enjoy the martial arts training and the study and learn more and watch the way people moved and educate himself to that martial art. And Kenpo really became his lady. Of course, the lady in his life, of course, was Rita. and they had a long-standing relationship for many years. Really didn't particularly like me. I was told she really didn't particularly like a lot of people, but that's okay. But it was getting to know her and knowing how much that she meant to Leo and how important she was in his life. Again, knowing his sister Deborah, actually going to school with Deborah, and getting to know his mom. His mom was a joy to behold. I will forever be indebted to the joys of Kool-Aid. And hey, you thirsty? We got some Kool-Aid after training with Leo. There was so many good memories with Leo, so many good times. And if you're one of his students, savor every moment that you had with him. If you're studying American Kenpo and maybe you didn't get to train with Leo, well, guess what? You owe your Kenpo training to Leo Lacerte. If you're from Southeastern Massachusetts, that's it. Either directly or indirectly, you owe your training in Kenpo to Leo Lacerte. He is the pioneer of Kenpo in Southeastern Mass. I said it before, I'll say it again. I always believe in giving credit where credit is due. Leo was a funny guy. For years it took me a while to get my Leo Lacerte impersonation down. And I'll tell you, when Leo talked to you, it's funny, I listened to Dennis Knatzer talk, do his imitation of Mr. Parker, and, sometimes it's really close to the way Leo would talk. And I'll tell you, when you dealt with Leo, till he grabbed that guy and the tongue would stick out and he'd talk about something. And there were certain Leo Lacerte, anacronyms and certain, not anacronyms, but different features of the way he was as a person, just couldn't forget. And it was a joy, an honor, a pleasure, and a privilege to know Leo Lacerte as an instructor, as a fellow black belt, as a friend. And I'm so fortunate that I could meet someone, in the big phrase, his twin sons from different mothers. That's how I felt with Leo. Another term that immediately comes to mind is a kindred spirit. Leo had a true love and passion for the martial arts, and literally you couldn't go wrong working with Leo. He was just a great person and very fortunate. And again, if you study from Lance Soares, you came from Leo. You study with Steve Arsenault, you came from Leo. You study with me, you came from Leo. That simple. And he really needs to be recognized. And I really thank individuals like Steve Arsenault, who brought him into his camps and allowed him to teach there. I'm very thankful to Lance Soares, who was introduced to his present instructor, Lee Wedlake, through Leo. And to watch these gentlemen continue Leo's legacy in their own images through their individual schools, as I do. And the key ingredient and last phrase I want to say is, you got to give credit where credit is due. And to not give credit to Mr. Lacerte, to Leo, is doing a disservice to anyone who does Kenpo in this area. So do yourself a favor. If you haven't gotten his books, get them. If you haven't found out about Leo, find out about him. Whether through his Facebook page, which is still up, his website, find out about this man. Because if it were not for him, a lot of people in this area just wouldn't be doing Kenpo.
And of course, no episode about the life of Leo Lacerte could be complete without his association with Mr. Rich Hale and, of course, the Ohana Kenpo Karate Association. Leo first got in touch with Rich through the internet and started a long-term conversations and dissertations on Kenpo, and he was really impressed with Rich Hale's approach and really enjoyed his study and knowing that he was an actual personal student and private lesson student of Mr. Parker, really convinced Leo to get more involved with Mr. Hale and his organization, the Ohana Kenpo Karate Association. Of course, Ohana is from the Hawaiian language meaning family. And Leo really became part of the family and really focused on assisting Rich in his endeavors regarding Kenpo, eventually earning the prestigious position of being vice president of the Ohana Kenpo Karate Association. Leo brought Mr. Hale into New Bedford and had him come in and do seminars at his studio. And they really became close friends. And Rich was devastated when he heard of Leo's death and flew in from the West Coast to attend Leo's funeral. Again, Leo was so taken with Rich and with the Ohana Kenpo Karate Association that he even specifically asked that even on his gravestone, he wanted it listed Vice President of the Ohana Kenpo Karate Association. Leo is a wonderful man, a wonderful person, and again, as I stated before, I was truly blessed to know him. And I hope that you, as the viewers of our program, and whether you're a martial artist or not, perhaps you might even be friends of Leo, business acquaintances, whatever it may be, hopefully you've gotten a little more insight into the life and times of Mr. Leo Lacerte. Until then, to Leo, rest in peace, my friend.
Kung Fu is attractive, steady, clever, and elegant, powerful. It is a foundation of Chinese culture, inherited from our ancestors. Like tigers, they are a treasure of our world. We must pass these treasures to our children. Please do not buy or use any tiger products. Together, let's stop the trade in tiger forever. When the buying stops, the killing can too.
We shouldn't be scared of tigers. They should be scared of us, because we're hunting them to near extinction. Tigers don't belong in our foods or our medicines. They belong in the wild. Please help make sure 2010 won't be our last year of the tiger.
Never buy any products made from these beautiful animals. When the buying stops, the killing can too.
Do you know the tiger, turtle, and rhino are almost extinct? Do you know that they are still being hunted? Do you know that the main cause is because people buy souvenirs, traditional Asian medicines, and delicacies made from endangered species? Do you know that this can be stopped? Do you know that you can help? Please tell others that when the buying stops, the killing can too. Thank you.
If you're buying rhino horn, you may be paying for more than just horn. You're paying for guns, bullets, poison arrows, chainsaws, axes, and machetes to hack off the face of the rhino. And you are paying for the life of a beautiful creature. So please tell your friends and relatives, never buy products made from rhino horn. When the buying stops, the killing can too.
We got a bunny with my